This week on Quality Digest Live, we talked to Larry Stuart, author of The Spirit of Hospitality. You remember those days, right? The days of hospitality and civility and outstanding service and servant leadership. Well, they may seem like they're in hiding, and maybe they are, but we can get them back. Find out how in 30 seconds. Welcome back to Quality Digest Live. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest. Do the ideas of outstanding service or hospitality seem like antiquated terms to you? I mean, after all, nowadays we do almost everything online, right? We plan our trips online, our airline, or our car rentals. At some restaurants, we even order our meals on little iPads or tablets at our table. We check our own baggage. We carry our own luggage to our hotel room. And once we get to our hotel, we even Google what to do around our hotel rather than going down to the front desk and asking the concierge. So is it any surprise, really, that hospitality and customer service may kind of seem like quaint ideas from a bygone age? Is hospitality even important anymore? Well, our next guest thinks so. We are joined today by Larry Stuart, author of The Spirit of Hospitality, How to Add the Missing Ingredients Your Business Needs. For decades, and this is his book right here, for decades, Larry has been involved in developing a culture of service at companies like Disney, NASCAR, Hilton, and Southwest Airlines. Larry Stuart, thanks for joining us on Quality Digest Live today.
It's a pleasure to serve you and your guests, Dirk. Thanks for having me.
Well said, well said. A man who works in the hospitality business, I can tell. You know, I read your book. It was really good. I was struck by two things. Number one, it states the obvious, which I think needs to be restated. Everybody knows what hospitality is. I mean, I think everybody just in their gut knows what good service is. They know what hospitality is, and they know what civility is. And your book kind of recaps what those things actually mean within a business. But also your book is it's a how-to. If people are, you think you're going to read Larry's book and just get kind of a rehashing, wouldn't it be nice if the world was nicer? You actually have real how-tos in here on how to build up a culture or a spirit, as you say, of hospitality within your company. But before we get into that, how did you get started in the hospitality business? What's your background?
Early on, my father was an entertainer, a singer, and toured the country millions of miles. And as a kid, I traveled with him. My mother was an English teacher, so they tutored me on the road. So it started real early, Dirk. My friends were the people who worked in the hotels and the restaurants and the airlines. So that's how I connected with the industry, picking up towels around the pool, helping them bus tables, making beds, checking people in. I needed to do something and be purposeful. So I believe the passion to serve, that culture was embedded in me at that time. Then moving forward, my parents said, what a great path to take. What about Cornell University? So Cornell happened thereafter, and from there, the rest is history, from opening, operating, and owning part of 50 restaurants, 6, 7, 8 major hotels, having the opportunity to open the Walt Disney World Dolphin, all the Lowe's hotels at Universal Orlando, and on and on and on, to even owning a piece of an Embassy Suites downtown Orlando. But I believe hospitality isn't taught, it's caught. So the ethics in how my parents raised me with being responsible, accountable, treating my fellow man and woman with respect, that's something you don't really learn at college, do you? And I see that missing today, and they are the missing ingredients.
Well, I guess I was going to ask you that. I mean, do you feel that today, over the last, 10 years or whatever, do you feel that consumers in general have lost the desire to either give or receive outstanding service, or do they even care about hospitality anymore? Is it really kind of just one of those things like chivalry, right? It just doesn't, we don't think about it anymore.
Dirk, you may not know this, but the top guest service, there is a difference between a guest and a customer. I don't have customers to my house on Thanksgiving. So if I look at service, I look at a guest. And that was really something I learned at Disney. Why do we take our grandkids back to Disney these days? Because we went there as kids, and creating that memorable experience and being so engaged and exceeding our expectations, that's what it's all about. So when you ask the question, are they really interested or concerned about it? You may not realize this, but Apple is not a technology company. Either is Starbucks is not coffee, and Chick-fil-A is not about selling chicken, and neither is Southwest. All their mission statements are guest service focused. Steve Jobs focused on the concierges at Ritz-Carlton and created the Genius Bars. It's all about building relationships from the heart, not that transactional exchange. That's the challenge today, Dirk. It's you give me this and I'll give you that, versus building the sincere relationship and then helping them with their iPhone, or what can I get you at Chick-fil-A, or how could I serve your travel needs? Guest service is everything to winning companies.
So how do you do that then? I mean, how do you create a culture, or as you say it, a spirit of hospitality? I mean, do you train for it, or is it just you got to just pick the right people and hope for the best? I mean, how do you actually get that into a company so that you get what you're talking about?
Great lead in, Dirk. You cannot train a smile, attitude, or character. You could train them all the skill sets, so everybody we hired had to have that operating system of sincerity, kindness, humility, encouragement, an attitude of gratitude. I would rather have those elements or ingredients. I don't care how much experience you have, because the bad apple spoiled the bunch, right? That's who we have hired in the companies that you mentioned that I've worked for. That's why they are successful. I could teach you how to run a business, how to make a lot of money, but if your hand is out looking for the almighty buck first, you lose in the end, because it's all about the guest service interaction and building relationships. I have always taught all my clients and the people I've worked for, ROR comes after ROI comes after ROR, return on relationship. And you know this based on your relationships with people you've worked for. The ones you've built relationships with are the ones that are the long-lasting ones that you benefit from. So the dollars come afterwards to do spreadsheets and feasibility studies, and I could tell you where to put the best restaurant, airline, hotel locations, but it's not gonna last. It goes away. 60, 70,000 restaurants will close this year because they lack knowledge. They don't have the spirit of hospitality, or they don't have the finances to sustain through the tough times. So I can go on and on, but I don't want to overstay my welcome on that question.
Okay, but a couple of things come to mind as you're saying this. I mean, one is that not everybody. I mean, I guess when I think of customer service, I think of customer-facing people. You know, your server or the concierge or you know the flight attendant or whatever. And those people, I think, obviously have got to be, you know, they got to be outgoing. They kind of be people. They can't be shy or introverted but what about those people? I mean, some people are really, they want to do a good job and they're committed employees, but they're just not good at one-on-one, you know, they're shy or whatever. I mean, do you just not put those people in customer facing positions? And if that's the case, how does that still, what do you train them in terms of delivering good customer service when they aren't actually interacting with the customer? You see where I'm going?
I do. And Vince Lombardi had the same problem with the Green Bay Packers when he had taken over their teams, right? And so did Lou Holtz, who absorbed a couple of teams that weren't on point. You say, well, how do I create or build this winning team out of these people that just don't have it up front? I believe the first thing that needs to be identified through like human resources is people's passions have to be identified. Because once you do what you really love to do, Dirk, it's not work anymore. They never have to go to work again. But 78% of this country are miscast and not fitting into the roles they really belong in. That's part of the largest problem I see. Let's get another body. Let's get another number. We need to fill this slot over here instead of realizing these are human beings and their purpose and their gifts, what they do better than anybody else in this world, need to first be identified. And as you open by saying that person that feels uncomfortable in that one-on-one relationship needs to maybe be in a back of the house job, working in accounting, working in administration, where they may excel totally. So you and I see this everywhere and we say, how did this person get in this spot? It's not their fault. It's leadership's fault. And I want to say the old management regime that don't get it, that just want their bonus at the end of the year, and they're not really doing the right thing by team. Let the teams be involved in paneling through the interview process. I believe I've always done this, Dirk. If you bring in somebody in and I think they're great, I'm going to let them sit with the airline attendants, with the reservationists, with the baggage people. Let them see if they deserve to be on the team, right? And I've done the same thing in restaurants, hotels all my life. It's not about my decision. It's about do they fit in with the rest of the team? Because sometimes it's all about a dictatorship, and it's from the higher ups that just put the people in place, and they may not be doing the best job in that area.
So when it comes to hiring, then, so it sounds like what you're saying is that when you're hiring, you're going through the hiring process, you're looking for passion more than anything. Obviously, you got to have the requisite skills, and so you got to be qualified for the job and so forth. But you're looking for, is this person excited about doing this job? Do they want to do this job? And whether or not they are, quote, people or not, may make a difference on where they get positioned, but not necessarily whether they get hired. I mean, you're looking for people with the skills and the passion. Do I kind of have that right?
Not necessarily the skills, Dirk, but the passion. Okay. The passion to serve, to be that servant leader, is absolutely critical in the guest service industry. And let's talk about it. Guest service is everywhere. It's at the post office. It's at the grocery store. It's in any interface in retail. So my experience is hospitality on hotel, restaurant, airline side. But example, when I met my wife, she said, "Oh, so you're in hospitality." And I said, "So you think you're in hospitality?" She said, "Well, what do you do?" And I gave her a little bit of the background. Well, Lori was in funeral cemetery working for Dignity Memorial for 10 years. Now, you want to talk about where you need not only hospitality, but compassion and empathy, meeting people on the worst day of their life, where you're there to serve their family needs. So hospitality can go all the way to that level, all the way down to a big box store, whether it's Lowe's or Best Buy or something like that. But the right person that feels good about themselves, that wants to create that unique experience with that guest at that moment. There's the expression, we may not remember what people said or did, Dirk, but you will remember how they made you feel. And just think in your mind, your last great restaurant experience, or theme park, or airline experience, or even at a grocery store. You're going back where they at least stand up, look you in the eye, smile, greet you with the proper hospitality comment, welcome, It's great to see you today. But you could feel if it's canned or if it's sincere. And that all comes down to the training process, i.e. that Gary Keller at Southwest Airlines does so well. They hire the best people that are built for our industry, and they train them to the nth degree. Disney will have $8 to $10 an hour people so excited to be there every day. How is that? They spend $2,000 to $5,000 training each one of them every year. One more comment. Companies spend billions getting you in the front door through marketing and sales, and don't spend a dime on training to keep the guests coming back. That to me is ludicrous and makes no sense at all. When I go around the country as I am now with this message, there's complete agreement that these values are lost.
Well, you're talking about training. I think there's another aspect here. I think most people, at least in our business, who deal with customer service, are all familiar with Ritz-Carlton and their policy that all of their employees have the ability, the permission to spend up to $2,000 per guest to solve a guest problem, and to do that without interacting with a manager. Ritz-Carlton just says you can spend up to $2,000 to fix this problem for this guest, and you don't have to talk to your manager. So I want to talk a little bit about empowerment, because that's really what that is. How does empowerment, do you think, and empowering your employees, how does that dovetail or tie into customer service and employee satisfaction?
I'm getting chills, Dirk.
I fed you a line.
You gave me the right line, because this has been one of my biggest challenges, getting the old regime of managerial totalitarianism to let go and let their team run with the ball. And I've got a couple of points I want to make. Your point on Ritz-Carlton. Their success is based on empowerment. It's not about the $2,000 limit, but anyone. And by the way, their mantra is, we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. The way we've always done it is we have internal guests, Dirk, and external guests. We take care of the internal guests, which are our teams, crew, people say staffers. We never say employees, but at Ritz-Carlton, it's we're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. They have 20 values that they recite at every stand-up, every pre-meeting, whatever, and they drill these values into them so they can live the culture every day. The empowerment that they have is, if a housekeeper, a front desk clerk, a valet, find out of a guest challenge, they are responsible to carry that challenge or that ball into the end zone and solve it for the guest. They don't hand it off. And that's the gold key. Their gold standard is take care of it. Take care of the guest. You don't have to get approval from anybody. And yes, there is a limit. We have a fiduciary responsibility to take care of the company. We're not going to give a guest, bring your 50 family members back and stay for a week. That doesn't make sense. But the empowerment with Ritz and Southwest and Disney and NASCAR and companies like that are very successful, because guests know when things go wrong, that's when they win a guest for life in the way they handle it. And how many times do we go to an operation, whether it's a restaurant or a hotel, and they're speaking of 15 people, you're sitting there burning up 45 minutes an hour, and guess what? You don't go back. That's not me. I'm going to write to the CEO. I'm going to let them know what happened so they can do the right thing. Empowerment is critical in letting the team run the business, while the executives can get on the crow's nest and strategize and market. How can we become better from a global standpoint?
And I apologize for some of that. We've got some construction going on around here, so you probably hear some noise in the background.
We feel at home, Dirk.
I'm sure, everybody, they're listening to what you're saying, and I'm sure some people might argue that the training and the institutionalization of personalized service simply costs too much, right? It's like, what am I getting for all of this extra training and so forth, and the extra hassle in hiring? What am I getting for that? Am I really going to see it in my bottom line? Am I going to get the payback? Because training is expensive. I mean, let's face it, training costs money.
Apple was worth zero in 1976. Today it's over $1 trillion valuation. I can give you numbers for Disney. I can go on and on about the Cathys at Chick-fil-A or Southwest Airlines. The proof's in the pudding, Dirk. Look at the companies that hold up guest services and train to create that unique relationship in building that guest for a lifetime, forever, including the next generation. The dollars speak for themselves. So I put my, if you will, the answer to the question to the test. If you spend the money training your team, at least creating the gold standard for how do we interact with the guest when they come in, versus looking for the almighty buck to close the deal on the next timeshare, to just give me the money, as Jerry Maguire said back in the day, show me the money, or his counterpart. It doesn't last. Companies go belly up when they look for the money first. But when you train to create a unique guest experience and to build that relationship, that return on relationship comes back in the form of dollars. And I'm living proof of that in all the operations we've been in, because that's what we believed. That was our culture. That's how we trained. And now I get letters from sanitation engineers, or a better term, a dishwasher, or people that work for us, captains, managers of hotels that now own their own businesses. And they say, thank you for not that I'm something special, Dirk. It's the process in humility and being kind and empowerment, like you just brought up. And what else matters? It's, you can go through the exchange, but I am finding tremendous return that I don't get in a paycheck by just building the team members I was fortunate enough to have under my wing, and to hear them come back with all these wonderful stories. This is my purpose, because all the stuff and all the money goes away when we're gone. The purpose of the book was just to give back and to help. And it really should be brought up through the family experience. But a lot of families are not together today to teach their children these values. So I believe you have these values, Dirk. And I was going to ask you the question, why was this subject so important to you?
Well, I mean, I think it's a subject that's important to everybody. I mean, I think right now when we talk about, and this is getting maybe off the topic a little bit, but maybe not. Everybody, over the last, 5-6 years or something, talks about, gee, it seems like civility has gone by the wayside. But I kind of lump all that in together: civility, hospitality, customer service. It's almost like we don't care anymore to give it, but to a certain extent, we're going to be all bent out of shape if we walk into a restaurant and the server, maybe takes our order, but it's almost like they're bored to death about taking our order, or the concierge, or the person at the check-in counter, right? We're not concerned about being nice and civil and presenting our own flavor of customer service to the people we interact with. But boy, we sure get bent out of shape if they don't give it to us. I just think that's an interesting irony. So that's kind of why this topic interests me, since you asked. But you mentioned another point in your book that I thought was interesting, is there is also, particularly in the service industries, when you have established a relationship, whether let's say in a restaurant, you establish a relationship with the server, there's this opportunity to upsell that may not exist, or be less less likely to succeed if the service is poor. When you've established a relationship, now you can introduce other topics. Would you like to buy an expensive dessert? You don't use the word expensive, but that's really what it boils down to. There's the ability to upsell that you don't necessarily have unless you've established a relationship. And I thought that was a really kind of bottom line result of establishing good rapport.
Yeah, to know your first point that you made, it's very, very true. We've become so mechanical and technologically savvy that we've lost the human touch, and people are becoming rusty. You had mentioned, is it really our job to provide guest service when we're in a place to get it? My answer to that question would be yes. I find myself cheering up cashiers at the grocery store. They're sitting on the, they're the face of the store, not the CEO, right? So I'll encourage them. I'll cheer them up. I believe in always taking the high road when a guest comes at myself. They're angry. They're bitter. Did they just lose their job? A family member find out they have cancer. I could tell you lots of stories about that are true. We don't know what's on the other side of the face, what's going on in their lives. People are miscast. Dirk, you're absolutely right. But we always should share the spirit of hospitality. I'm in airport bathrooms, picking up papers off the floor. And again, cheering people on that maybe don't have a smile to give. But when you come back to the point of how do you want to go down the road of enjoying a dining experience, and the server really hasn't been there. He was checked out from the very beginning when we were sitting down versus really making us feel welcome. So when we ordered a glass of wine, it could have been a bottle, and we may have gone down the road, but maybe we just don't feel like engaging in that deeper relationship. If a server is truly caring, they should not be overselling a table with expensive porterhouse steaks or lobster tails or things of that nature. They should first listen. Everything should be in proportion. 2 of these, 1 of these, right? So they should listen to the guest, as Stephen Covey always said, first seek to understand, then be understood. So how may I serve you tonight? What do you feel like having? Let me tell you our specials. And if there's a little room at the end, maybe you could all share our house key lime pie, which our chef makes personally, and it would really top off the evening. So upselling is important for everybody to do. But unless you have trust and a relationship in play where you feel there's sincerity on both sides of the fence, you as the guest and the server, and you and I both know when somebody is sincere versus going through the motions, that's when upselling can be great. That's when you should be exchanging cards and say, the next time I come in, Richard, I'm going to ask for you because you just gave us one of the best experiences of our life. So I think the public, or all the people out there watching, you all know who you want to be engaged with and who not. And that's where it all comes down to. That's the ROR. I believe what you sow is what you reap. And if you find those great people that make you feel special, they deserve your business.
Well, with that, I want to end with a quote from your book, and I'll let you comment it on a little bit. And if we can just throw up Larry's book there. In your book, you have this quote. You talk about millennials, and you say kind of characteristically, we say we think of millennials as being entitled kids who live at home until they're 30 years old. But you say this, and I thought this was really interesting. This generation, meaning the millennials, has also decided that everyone should get along despite their differences, and that they want their work to have meaning. Maybe the millennials will be instrumental in bringing the spirit of hospitality back into the hospitality industry. What did you mean by that?
Exactly what it says, Dirk. Everything cycles in 20 to 25 years. And we have 3 daughters. and they range from 20 to 32. And the younger one kind of falls in that category. I think they have the ability to bring things back. I mean, when you look at the disarray, even in our government, or even when you turn on the news, and the infighting and backbiting going on, even in social media, somebody has got to correct these issues. And if they have the leadership capability to know from right from wrong, they are the ones we need to count on, because you and I won't be around anymore to get this job done. It's a huge task to turn our country around. And we have such a beautiful country. It was built on hospitality. Although we went through challenges to get to where we are today, we have to get back to where we were. And that is being grateful to being in one of the greatest countries in this world. And I think the millennials have a shot, don't you?
Yep. Awesome. Well, Larry Stuart, author of The Spirit of Hospitality. Thanks for joining us. That was really a pleasure.
Thank you, Dirk. And if anybody would like any further information, they can go to larrystewart.com, and I would be more than happy to serve them in any way that I can. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. And a link, you can see a link to Larry's site that he just mentioned down there underneath the player page down there. So be sure to go in and check out his book too. I'll also read his book. That is it for today. Be sure to pick up a copy of Larry's book. It will make you reminisce and hope for the return of the spirit of hospitality. And as usual, if there is someone you would like to see on our show or some topic you would like us to cover, send us those ideas at qdl@qualitydigest.com, and we will try to cover them on the show. That is it for today. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week. So long.